Brother Bob Lohr a few years back. For the audience, Brother Walter Beach is one of those brothers who you will see in a photo with Jim Brown back in the time of Muhammad Ali's resisting being drafted into the United States Army of America, USA. Brother Walter Beach was one of the premier football players, and we'll get into that. In fact, based on news events in the sports world, is Brother Jackson of the Ravens not doing as well as folks, as the betting line thought he would. When I see a loss like that, I look at the betting line. Who benefited from his loss? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Brother Walter Beach, thank you for joining us on The Communicators.
Okay. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you, Leroy.
And not only with me, but to a broad audience that's going to be on YouTube. This show is going up on YouTube today, and I'll send you the link so you can send it to friends and relatives. Okay, talk about...
I can't do that.
That's all right. Talk about...
I have no... I'm not technologically gifted in this.
That's all right, brother. Somebody, one of your daughters, your granddaughters, gonna come by and say, "Grandpa, you don't know how to do that. Let me show you." So that problem,
that happened.
That problem is solved. So tell us, from your vantage point, before we get into your background, etc. Tell us, from your vantage point, what happened in the Ravens game yesterday.
Leroy, I must apologize. I'm not much of a voyeur, so I don't watch football. I don't watch sports events, really.
Okay, that's good.
So I gotta apologize. I didn't see a football game. I think it's one play in a day, but I just have to say I'm sorry. I'm not that interested in it.
Okay, now that is still good because there's a why to that since you played the game.
Yeah, well, my response to it is football is what I did. That's not who I am.
Yes, sir. Okay.
So I think that it's all right. I think everybody should have some entertainment and enjoy themselves in whatever particular media that they so desire.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some things that in my personal life is just more important than spending a lot of time on entertainment.
Yes, sir.
People suffering, man. And given that, I do a lot of reading and a lot of thinking and thoughts about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll watch an occasional basketball game because I love LeBron James, not only as a player, but basically the particular model that he demonstrates that I think a lot of our young men need to move toward. He respects the sacred feminine, and he has morals and ethics that existed in our people long before we got involved in the what I call the European American hegemony or influence.
I'm laughing because we have the communicators consist of more than Brother Leroy. And we have two other brothers here who will join in on the conversation simply because one is into training people in how to box, self-defense. The other one, having been a basketball player and still is in his mind, if his knees allow him to do what he used to do. But that's beside the point. I'm gonna get back to LeBron James, and I'm going into the past now as it relates to what you did. How is it that you became a professional football player and wound up on the same team with Jim Brown, and what was that experience?
Well, I played 2 years of professional football with the Boston Patriots at that time. And I was released by the Boston Patriots after I called a team meeting because we were going to play at that time with the American Football League, the Boston Patriots. We were going to play in New Orleans, and they had all of the black ball players staying at one place, and the white ball players staying at another place. And I protested. Shakespeare said, "Thou protestest too loud." So I protested about going to New Orleans to play football and living and being placed in segregated quarters. So the next day they placed me on waivers in Boston. Mm-hmm. And then after I left Boston, I went home, I continued to work out, and I wrote a couple letters to several of the professional football teams. And I wrote a letter to the Cleveland Browns, and they sent me a contract based on my collegiate and 2 years with the Boston Patriot experience. They sent me a contract, and I went in to the Cleveland Browns at the age of 30. And I made the Cleveland Browns roster, and I was on the World Championship team. I was the cornerback on that team against Johnny Unitas. And Jim and I always had a good relationship, and people never really understood. Not only is Jim a magnificent physical specimen, but Jim takes a great deal of pride in his mind and his thoughts. Mm-hmm. And just briefly, it might be funny. If you want to play Jim some chess and you don't want to stay up all night, you better lose the game. If you don't lose the game, he's going to keep on until he wins. We got to play another game, Doc. I said, Jim, we done played 4 games. He said, we got to play another game.
Now, okay. You made the team at 30. Today they're talking about the life of a professional football player is maybe ended at 26, 27 in general. We don't see it as consumers, but it's seen on the teams and the guys that aren't picked up. What was it? Granted that you were a good player, but talk about the elements that allowed them to hire you, to put you on a contract at the age of 30. What were they? What did? Go ahead.
I think one of the. I mean, it's kind of. If you don't know the game, they had a defensive cornerback named Jim Schaffner, and he retired. So when he retired, the year that I came in as a rookie, they was in the need, basic for a defensive cornerback. So they gave me they gave several other people the opportunity, but I came in because they needed a cornerback.
Okay.
And I filled that particular role.
Got it. Okay. All right. So you covered a little bit about Jim Brown and his being relentless in striving to be a winner. That's the same thing that we saw in the field with him running through tackles, etc.?
Yeah, Jim. I can share a couple things about Jim that people don't really deal with. We were getting ready to play the St. Louis Cardinals. And of course, being on the defense, we had to mirror the defense of the Cardinals. And I was the right cornerback, and Jim came up to me and he said, "Hey Doc," he said, "Pat Fisher plays this corner different than you. He comes up and plays it tight." He said, "So I want you to come up and play it tight." I said, "Okay," showing him the mirror. He said, "When you come up and play it tight like Pat Fisher does," he said, John Wooten, who's the guard, he said, "Woot's going to come around and kick Pat Fisher out," which would have been me. He said, "And then when that happens, Larry Wilson is going to step into that hole. And when Larry Wilson step into the hole, that Wooten just cleared out. Jim said, I'm going to drop this on him. Talking about his forearm, he said, I'm going to drop this on him. And that play came up, they call it a toss 9. Pat Fisher came up, Wooten kicked Pat Fisher out. Larry from the Cardinals, who was the strong safety, stepped in the hole, and you could hear it all over the stadium. Jim run right over it. Boom. So the point I'm making is not only was he physically equipped to play the game, he was mentally astute. He knew what was going on. He'd call that play, like I said, all week when we were practicing. Wow. He had already set that play up. And just the way he aligned it up, that's the way it went down.
Wow.
So Jim is very unique. He's a brother that I love, and I have the utmost respect for him. The final point I'll make about Jim is another funny situation. We were coming out of the stadium, and it was an ice patch. And Jim slipped on the ice patch. And you may not believe it. He didn't go down or fall for about 45 seconds. He just kept fighting not to fall. So yeah, he's a very unique individual. Like I said, very intelligent and very committed to our people. He set that whole thing up with Muhammad Ali.
Flesh that one out.
I'm sorry.
Expand on that piece that you just said about Muhammad Ali.
Oh yeah, no. He called all the guys together and said, "Look, we have to support Muhammad Ali and what he wants to do." And if you understand, when I was playing football, we didn't make money, the kind of money these guys make. So everybody in that picture with Muhammad Ali flew in to make that meeting, spending their own money. They didn't get no honorarium. They didn't get no money to do it. They volunteered their own service and time and absorbed their own airfare to come in to make that presentation. I'm not saying the young men wouldn't do that today, but every time they want some money for everything,
Right.
But it was a different commitment. It was a different commitment, different time, different levels of consciousness.
Right. And in terms of yourself, and you might be considered, this is my speculation, you might be considered a fighter along with Jim Brown. When you look at yourself, what are the roots of that determination, that willingness to stand up for yourself, for your people?
Well, I come out of a community, a small community in Pontiac, Michigan. So the community, everybody in my community at that where when I come out was different than neighborhoods. Anybody in my community, when I was growing up, if I got out of line, anybody, adult, could chastise me or spank me. And the worst thing to do is to have one of your community members chastise you and then go tell your mother and father. Now you got a second punishment coming. So I come up in the community. There was a general store, Mr. Cooley's General Store, a black man. Doc Hayton's drugstore, a black man. Lived next door to a lawyer and lived next door to a doctor. And if you're familiar with jazz, the Jones Boys was in Pontiac, Michigan. Thad, Hank, all of those. So I grew up in a community where I had a friend one time, my next door neighbor, the Samples, they had 5 boys and 5 girls. So we were kind of considered like the Samples. So William says, I said, man, what's going on? He said, oh, man. He said, I just got a beating from my mother. I said, what you got a beating for? Said, Miss Sally told Mama that I was disrespectful. but it wasn't me. It was my brother Herbert. But if I told Mama that it wasn't me, it was Herbert, then Mama said, "Well, you say Miss Sally's lying." So you get a whipping for saying Miss Sally told the wrong message. I mean, I come out of that community, so everybody. So I grew up knowing what's a responsibility. My mother and father, we had a saying. My mother's favorite saying: "Right is right. Right don't wrong nobody, and wrong is wrong, and wrong don't right nobody." I tried to justify reasons why I was right, and hoping that my mother would say, "Oh, well, this is my son, so he was right." But she took that position. Right's right, wrong's wrong. You done been wrong, and you can't be. I'm not gonna. So that's the way I grew up, man. So I ain't had nothing all my life, man, but love for my people. And to me, that whole aspect of that European orbit and octave, strange and foreign to me. So I never did make the necessary adjustment to acclimate myself to think that I had to be around other people, other than my people, or that I couldn't do anything in the absence of it. My dad called that biological identity. She said it's the ancestral pedigree and lineage of self-knowledge and self-revelation. So my biological pedigree means what? That's got something to do with my family. It's got something to do with my race. It's got something to do with my ethnicity. So I'm not in opposition to all those other. I don't celebrate none of the European aspects more than I celebrate my ancestry lineage to the mother continent. That's just me. And I'm not asking no quarters and not giving any. I don't care what other people do or what they say.
Man. Brother Walter Beach is with us on the Communicators. And once again, Communicators is a group, a team effort on this side. And we have a question coming from fellow communicator Ricky Young.
How you doing, Walter Beach?
Yeah, sir. How are you?
The question is, what did you learn about life from playing that position of quarterback in the NFL? Cornerback. What did you learn about life from playing that position of cornerback in the NFL?
Well. You know, you're constantly in a situation where you have to be conscious and aware. And one of the things, all intelligent creatures understand their environment. So I want to be clear about that. All intelligent creatures understand their environment. So I don't have no myths or fallacies about what I say is the American European colonial occupation. So I know what America is. So what I learned is that you have to be able to live and address your hypocrisies. So my father always told me, he said, racism exists, and you have to decide what the terms are that you're going to relate to it are. So one aspect of that, if racism exists, are you going to expand it? Are you going to refine it? Are you going to maintain it? Or are you going to eliminate it? So representational primacy means what you going to spend most of your time doing. So I spend most of my time in my effort trying to eliminate it. Some people just want to maintain it and stay, boss is good, so I'm good. I ain't got no problem with them. That's a personal decision. That's a personal choice they make. I didn't make that choice. Every effort that I have and all the energy that I could garner is not to be supported or those of that particular philosophy and theory. So that's just me. I don't go to church and ask God to help me deal with that. I deal with it. I believe that, a question, it's a song that Terry Collier said, will prayer remove me from the reach of sorrow? And the question is, no, you got to remove yourself from the Regis sorrow. That's being responsible.
Can I ask him a question, Brother Leroy? Can I ask him a question? You might have to. Okay, I got a question. What college did he go to? What college did you go to, Walter?
What college did I go?
That's right.
Yeah, I went to Central Michigan. I went to Central Michigan University in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Attended Yale Law School in New Haven. Attended the New York Theological Seminary. So I have been greatly exposed to the European paradigm on logic and how to make assessments and think and use my mind.
We know that because you're a cornerback. Why'd you pick number 49? Yeah. We got your picture. We got your football picture up on the screen. So why'd you pick number 49? And my other question is, what about Jim, man? You travel all around with Jim, man. What was that like, man? Traveling when y'all was going on the road with Big Jim? Because I seen some pictures of him in the locker room, and you're right, he was a magnificent specimen. Magnificent. I was unbelievable when I saw a picture of his physique. That was incredible.
Yeah. And like I said, a strong man. But Jim was, let me share you this with Jim, man. You know, when I was on the Browns, and they called me in and said, Mr. Beach, come in and bring your playbook. The playbook that's their property. So when they ask for their playbook, that means they get ready to cut you. So I go in, and they told me that they had made up their mind that they're going to go with someone else other than myself. And, of course, nothing I could do but accept it and acknowledge it. So I came back up. We was in training camp. I came back upstairs at Hiram at the college, and I was packing. And it was 2 a day. So while I was packing, it was time for the afternoon practice, and Jim came by. He said, Doc, he said, let's go to practice. I said, Jim, they just put me on waivers. He said, no, man. He said, you got to be kidding. I said, no, they just put me on waivers. And he said, come on, man, let's go to practice. Excuse my language, and I hope you don't offend the people on the program. But I said, man, you can see I'm packed in my shit, can't you?
We ain't offended.
I'm getting ready to go.
We ain't offended.
So he said, oh, man. But he left. He came back about 30 minutes. He said, let's go to practice, man. I said, Jim, they put me on waivers. I'm no longer on the team. Jim, with them big hands, he grabbed me by the arm, and he forced me back down to the practice field. And when I get to the practice field, they putting my shoulder pads, my cleats, and my helmet, and my nameplate back up on the locker. So I don't know what to do, man. This is a true story. I don't know what to do. I feel I'm just awkward. So when they started to practice, you do the exercise, and I'm doing exercise, don't even know where I am, because I know what they done said. Then they breaks up the defensive linemen, the defenses, the cornerbacks, the quarter, everybody into their section. So Blackman says, all right, give me my star defensive corner, my defensive team. He calls out. He said, Ross Fiechner. Ross comes up. He said, Larry Benz. And Larry comes up. He said, Bernie Parrish. And Bernie Parrish comes up. And then he said, Walter Beach. So I'll go out there, you know. The last thing I knew, I wasn't on the team. And I played 6 years, man, and they never said nothing else to me about it.
Wow. Wow, brother.
Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead, Jim.
They never said. But I want to let you know how it went down, because I told Jim when I found out, I said, man, and this is something I think you need to understand. This is why Jim's a man. I said, man, I really appreciate you standing up for me as my friend. And you know, this is what Jim said. He said, man, I didn't stand up to you because you're my friend. He said, I got a lot of friends that I'll let you go home, He said, I stood up with you because you could play. It had nothing to do with friendship. He said, he said, it had nothing to do with friendship. He said, I could play. I said, but what made them change their mind? He said, I told them. Hear them words? I mean, you got to hear the language. He said, I told them. He didn't suggest nothing. He said, I told them, if you want me, Jim Brown, to do the best I can and produce the best I can, you cannot insult me by taking good players and sending them home.
Go ahead, baby.
Wow.
Now, after he said that to me, he said, and Doc, me and Jim Cloak, he said, Doc, I never mentioned race. He said, I never mentioned race, but I knew what it was. I was the first black or African-American cornerback to play on the Cleveland Browns. And the Cleveland Browns had made a statement that black players were not smart enough to play the corner. That's what I come up under. Black players are not, they're athletically equipped, but they're not smart enough to play the corner. Because the defense changes, You leave the defensive huddle and they say it's a 3-key. And then when they go in a certain situation, you hear them out there shouting. That means defense just changed. And when the defense has changed, you got to know what to do. And why Jim said what he had said, he said, because I always respected you. So when I was taking examinations for defenses, if it was a 3-key and you had to put the players in, what the cornerback does, I didn't only put what the cornerback did. I put what all 10 people, the other 11, other 10 people did. I would say what the middle linebacker did. I'd say what the weak linebacker did. I'd say what the strong linebacker on defense. Why? Because I'd already got the message I wasn't smart, man. Y'all ain't smart enough. So every time we had an exam, I placed on that paper what all 11 men did. So they couldn't keep that. They couldn't say I wasn't smart enough. So I didn't only know what Walter Beach did. I know what Bill Glass did, the defensive end. I knew what Mike Lucci did, the middle linebacker. I put all that in there. The one thing you're not going to do is send me home because you say I don't know the defense.
Right, exactly.
Why did Jim call him Doc?
The question that question came from Doug. He also asked, why did and does Jim Brown call you Doc?
Oh, I'm kind of an intellect, I read a great deal. I have an extensive vocabulary, and I can articulate things. And my analysis is like Jim. And the book that I wrote, consider this, Jim. He's one of the. He's one of those in my book that said that I am. Well, he just wrote the foreword for my book. That's it. Okay. But all the time when we used to talk all the time, man, Jim always used to say your mind, M-I-N-D, and my mind, and that's what Jim is about all the time. The mind. I'm serious about this. He's a very deep thinker, and he deals with all of those aspects of logic and reasoning, and he knows the basic principles. And he was a bright guy in Syracuse. He wasn't just a football player.
No, he wasn't. Why number 49, Brother Levi?
The other question is, why did you pick the number 49 for your jersey in Cleveland?
I just picked it. Bobby Mitchell. That was Bobby Mitchell's jersey before he went to the Redskins. So it was available. So I just took that number.
Okay.
In terms of numerology and that type of thing. It had no significance to me.
Got it. Well, that it winds up being 4. 4 is the number of foundation, if that meant anything or means anything to you today.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Now, go ahead, brother.
No, I was just saying in numerology that may be so. My personal number for numerology is 7.
Okay.
That's what I vibrate on. Is a 7. So
okay.
in that aspect of numerology. So when I meditate in the morning, I say my mantra 7 times. So I try to stay
beautiful
in tune with the universe.
That's beautiful, brother. That's beautiful. I'm thinking as I'm talking, so what you hear coming out of my mouth is my thoughts in terms of it's beautiful. There's a round table. Rick, you got any?
I got one more.
Okay.
When y'all was traveling, around, I know now when LeBron and all these guys traveling around, what was it like when y'all was traveling around the country, being that you and Jim were actually black? And how many black guys was on the team? And what was it like when y'all had to travel around to the different cities?
Well, when we traveled, it was interesting. We always wore a suit and ties, and we always carried an attaché case, like businessmen. And it was 12 of us on the team. So at that time, we had more black athletes on the football team than any other team in the National Football League. Mm-hmm. But that's how we traveled, and we always stuck together. So when we would travel, if we were going to the stadium, it would be 3 cars. Jim's car, and it would be 4 people in Jim's car. Might be Ernie Green's and 4 people. So we always traveled together. When we got on the bus, whenever we got on the bus, we all got on the same bus. It might be 2 buses taking the team to the hotel, but we got on the bus, and that's the way we always traveled. So, and the owner come up and said, "Well, why do all of the black ball players get on the bus?" And again, my response was, "Why do all the white ball players get on the bus?" We come on, we all get on the bus, but the issue is why do the black ball players get on the bus, and we don't, So it's that artificial aspect of we all just pleased to be here together, which is not the truth. If you want to know the truth, then the whole truth, it's not the truth, because if it were, then they would have would stand up when it's up or when it's up. Man, I'll share something with you, man. You might think it's insignificant. We won the Super Bowl, or at that time was the world champions, and we got paid for. You got an extra bonus for winning the World Series champion.
Right.
So you had to vote on who should receive a portion of the monies. This is a true story, man, and that's why when you have to understand what's going on. There was a man named Dave Ramey from the University of Michigan. He played on the team, but he got hurt in the middle of the season. And then there was another Caucasian, white, or European gentleman, Bob Gaines, big defensive lineman. He played on the team, and he got hurt. So when it came time to making the shares, who was going to get shares, all of the 40 men on the roster was going to get shares. And then we had to vote whether Dave Ramey would get a share or whether Bob Glass would get a share. Bob Gaines. Man, we had to protest. When I say we, and Jim had to make the speech. They didn't want to give Bob Gaines a share, nor Dave Ramey a share, which would have been about $100 for each of us. Because it's 40 people, you know.
Right, right.
So if each of us gave $100, at least they'd get $4,000. Them dudes didn't want to vote, man. Them dudes. The only guys voted to split the share were the 12 black ball players. Now it wasn't just for Dave.
Right.
It was also for Bob Gaines.
Right.
But I'm just talking about the level of contempt that they have in terms of trying to share and make things equal. That's a deep mentality, man. Y'all asked me to talk about. Y'all asked me to talk about it. I talk about it, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I said, for January 31st, a few days, I'll be 87. I'll be 87 years old.
Wow.
So I ain't got nothing to hide, and I ain't got no shit. I ain't got no shit.
Now, going back to LeBron, what is it that you see in LeBron? Expand on LeBron's, your vision.
Well, when I said, first of all, you know, he married a high school sweetheart, so he didn't get infatuated or get played out of position about that glamour thing. He had already decided who he's going to love and have his family and his children. So the most sinister aspect, in my opinion, about professional sports is the fact that a lot of people lose their center and what is important to them, because it's a unique position, and if you've never been there, it's difficult to understand. I was in high school as a high school All-American in football and track. In my high school, if you went between classes, you had to get a permit to go between the classes or go from one room to the next room during while classes was attended.
Right.
I didn't. I could get up and walk out of class and wasn't nobody in the school saying nothing. Go to the next room and wasn't nobody saying nothing. But anybody else, you had to get a pass. So that's a privilege. And those privileges begin to compromise the essence of who you are. Because you start thinking you better than somebody else. So when I held the state record in the 100-yard dash in Michigan and the 220, and my sister and my aunt came home because we lived, my mother, my father, we all lived in the house with my grandmother. We all lived together. So my sister and my aunt came home and said to my grandmother, they said, "Granny, June," that's what they call me, Junior June, just broke the state record in the 220-yard dash. And my grandma said, "That's fine. June, go empty the slop jar." Now y'all may be too young to know what a slop jar is. Do you know what a slop jar is?
That's that pot in the room.
That's the pot. That's the pot in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Where everybody do their thing at night.
Yeah.
And after everybody do their thing at night, you got to take it out to the outhouse and empty it.
That's right.
And because we had an outhouse, we didn't have no plumbing in the house. We had plumbing for water. You had to prime the pump to get water. But in terms of going to the restroom, we had to go outside about 50 yards in the back into an outhouse with a deep hole, and that's where we used the back. You didn't do that at night. That's why you had a slop jar. So everybody needed to use the slop jar at night. So the point I'm making, my grandmother said, "I don't care how many records you bring, boy. In this house, you got to empty the slop jar. You ain't no better than you got any chores to do." So that was an aspect of what I'm saying. I blessed my grandmother and another young lady when I was in high school for that, because they helped me put my head on. I asked a girl named Dorothy McCluster, prettiest black girl I'd ever seen. big eyes. And I asked Dot when I was, I said, Dot, I'd like to take you to the senior prom. And she said, Walt, I don't want to go to senior prom. Now, I done told you who I was, didn't I?
You're right.
I'm the man in that school.
Yeah.
I'm the man. I could get any girl in that school almost that I wanted to. But I like Dot. So I asked Dot, I said, can I take you to the senior prom? She said, no. I said, well, why not? First time in my life I heard these words, man. She said, Walt, you act too stupid. You walk around here as though everybody got to, that's how I walk. That's how I act. I act like it was mine. And she thought it was stupid. And I had never thought of my behavior as being stupid. But subsequently, I changed my behavior, and I took Dot to the senior prom, and we became kind of boyfriend, girlfriend at that age,
Yes, sir.
So I've been checked a couple times about, hey, man, I'm no man of no special rank. That's the way Jim feels. Jim's no man of no special rank. And once we start relating to each other, what I say a lot of times, people don't really like it. They say, who are you? I say, I'm God. Appearing as Walter Beach III.
Go ahead, black man. Go ahead. Yeah.
Now, what does that say to you, Leroy, if you said, I'm God?
Yeah.
Appearing as Leroy.
Man.
How do we have to relate to each other as God?
Go ahead, brother.
We can't be shooting each other unless we done said, I'm a Crip.
Wow.
I'm a Blood.
Right.
Now we can shoot each other. Why? Because we done separated ourselves.
Man.
But my thing was, I said, I am the living temple of the Most High God.
Man.
So that's the way I deal with. So when I reach people, I deal with them like they're gods. That's all I can do. And that balances me out. And what I'm talking to you about, man, I don't ask nobody to deal with it any way other than how they want to deal with it. My father's favorite position was, man, he said, don't ask no quarters and don't give nothing.
Go ahead.
So I ain't asking nobody for nothing and prepared to take the consequences.
Your
prepared
dad.
to take the consequences.
Your dad.
Oh, yeah.
Your dad. What was his? You were Pontiac, Michigan, but where were your parents from? What part of the South?
Yeah, well, my mother's from Mounds, Illinois, but my dad, he was from Frankfort, Tennessee. He come up with my grandmother and his siblings, or his brothers and sisters.
Right.
So my father married my mother in Michigan. So he was a giant, man. He was a giant. He, like I said, he big boy, big man, but like I said, he surrendered punishment over to my mother if it was needed be. But I didn't get much punishment growing up. Now my sister stayed in trouble, but I didn't. Shirley was always. Shirley was too much, to the day she died, But she was always. She's a free spirit. And that's what we were taught. My mother and father taught it. If someone would ask me what did I think was the most important lesson that my mother and father taught me, I said personal sovereignty, the supreme power or authority to be independent. My mother didn't make me. My mother was the mother in the church. She went to church every Sunday. I went to church with her every Sunday, but she never tried to force me to join church. She said, when the people join church, she said, June, don't you want to go join church? I said, no, Ma. She said, okay. And once I left the house and went to college and lived on my own, she always said that I was she always said that I was a heathen. She said, you're a heathen. She said, where you at? where you wear all them dreadlocks like you wear? I said, well, I wear my dreadlocks for a reason, not for a season. I said, I wear it for a reason. That's to identify with Africa, man. And she would say, boy, you ain't never been to Africa. And she was right. She was right there. You ain't never been to Africa. What you doing? I said, I don't know, Mom. She said, you just a heathen. You got all these crazy ideas, you know. No, but my dad, man, a message he left with me. Now, man, if you want to hear it, his message was, man, he used to say, do you want something or do you want to be something? Mm. So I'm 8 or 9 years old. What will an 8 or 9 year old say? I said, Daddy, I want something. Mm-hmm. So he said, but no, you should want to be something. Yeah, I said, but I want a BB gun, I want a bicycle, some roller skate. I want something. He said, but don't you understand this? I said, what's that? He said, how you going to get it? I said, what you mean how I'm going to get it?
I don't have an answer for that.
I said, you and Mama get it. He said, that's the problem. He said, if you want something and need something, you got to get it. Mm-hmm. And the only way you're going to get it is to be something. Mm-hmm. So it's more important to be something than to get something. Mm. He said, so you got to be a man, and then when you're a man, you can buy you some roller skates, a BB gun, you know. He said, but if I have to give it, then you ain't got no responsibility to do nothing. So that was my training, man. That's how I come up in a community where people felt that way. A Doc Hayden's drugstore, I stole a comic book out of Doc Hayden's drugstore. And as I was leaving, I had the comic book up under my sweater. And Doc Hayden said, Little Beach. I said, yeah, Doc. Because I didn't know he saw me. I didn't know he saw me take this comic book. He said, are you going to pay for that comic book? Or is your father going to pay for that comic book? So I said, Doc, I said, please, I'll put the book back. Please don't tell my father. So he said, all right, I won't tell your father. He said, just promise me that you won't take something that don't belong to you. Mm. And I just told you gentlemen earlier, I'll be 87 years the 31st of January. Mm. I've never taken anything that didn't belong to me because of that experience. If it's mine, then I'm going to have to work or do what I have to do, but I'm not going to steal anything. Mm. And then that's what, and that's just the way, man, that I come up. So I'm a proud African man, man. I ain't got no, like I said, am I a hypocrite? Sure, my hypocrisy. I have silent rage about what's going on in this country, you know. Mm. But I'm a hypocrite. I have to. I buy my cars from the same place you buy your cars from. Some cat set it up. I buy my bread like everybody else. So I know that I'm totally pure and free from the aspect of this particular situation in this country.
Doctor,
I don't have any illusions about it. But I don't act like I don't know what it is, though.
Brother, I started to call you Dr. Walter Beach, and I am going to call you Doc. That we're going to have to continue this conversation because the other two brothers, they have more questions. I have more questions, and we're moving into somebody else's time. That is, Brother Rick Young has a program
No,
after.
I'm okay, man. Like I said, I'm good where I am. Whatever y'all want to do, I'm all right.
No, I'm just saying that in preparation of the audience that we're going to phase out. But you got into your parents and your upbringing as a result of the question on fleshing out your take on LeBron James and the impression that he's made on you, that those observations you have made regarding LeBron James. Just conclude with that?
Yeah, well, you just, if there's anybody on the planet involved in professional sports that could be an arrogant, disrespectful, overbearing human being without much objection, it would be LeBron James. And he manifests none of those qualities that some professional athletes with a lesser status has. LeBron is so LeBron is just a gentleman to me, and it pleases me that he says and handles his life the way that he does.
Beautiful.
So that's all I'm saying.
Beautiful. And the last question is, Jim Brown, does he? I don't see TV that tough, but does he do any spot commentaries? Do they hire him to do any spot commentaries regarding the football games?
No, not to my knowledge. I don't think he does. I'm not aware of any.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, this is part one, my brother, and I will get back to you on part two because, hey, well, you know, it's. I'm glad that we have gotten into the discussion with you along the lines that we have, because there's so many insights that you can provide us with for guidance, not only for ourselves, our families, and the broader audience. And I want to thank you very much. Your book is Consider This.
Yeah, my book's Consider This. You can get that, I think, on Walter Beach. I don't know. My wife knows. I don't even know how to do that stuff.
Well, our next
WalterBeach.com, I think it is.
Okay. If it's not that, the next go round, we're going to have all that covered in advance. And want to thank you very much for taking your time with us today. And may God continue to bless you and your family tremendously, brother, for the work that you've done and for the free spirit that you've shared with us this afternoon.
Okay, man. Thanks to all of you, brothers. Peace and love.
All right. God bless you. Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been The Communicators, coming to you from not East Harlem. Gosh, brother, I apologize. From Grant Houses Community Radio. We thank the Resident Association for backing and sponsoring this particular radio show and the station itself. It's a gateway to more minds and hearts than would ever exist on other commercial or non-commercial stations. Stay tuned for Brother Rick Young and What's in Your Hand.